Instagram might be an image-first platform, but it's your captions that are going to make you stand out from the crowd. Your captions are so important. Why are captions so important? Because it's all well and good having great quality imagery that stops people scrolling, but to actually take it to the next step and to get them to engage with you and read your content and actually become an avid fan and follower, then you have to create engaging captions that connect with them. But what if you suck at writing? What if the thought of writing fills you with dread? I've got you. In this video, we're going to talk through 8 tips to help you create Instagram captions that not only connect with your audience, but that sell you and sell your offer in a way that never feels salesy or pushy. But before we get into the juicy tips, I'm first going to share a story with you, which is one of the tips I share coming up, the importance of storytelling in your captions. Now, when I first started growing my main Instagram account, The Doors of London, and the account that really saw me testing strategies and testing the strategies that I was working on for big brands like Canon and Disney. When I started growing that account, I didn't really realize the importance of captions. I've got to be honest, I really thought it was all about great quality imagery. I did understand the importance of engaging with my community, but I thought, okay, Instagram is an image-first platform. I don't need to be writing long captions, even though I am a writer at heart. It's what I studied at university. I love writing, but I didn't think that Instagram was the place to write and to tell stories. I kept my captions brief. I really there was no meaning in them really. You know, there was short captions. Occasionally I'd talk about my day, but generally speaking, it was all about the imagery. And you know what happened? Last January 2019, I shared an image of myself with a door. So that was the first time I'd actually shown myself on my main feed. And I wrote a caption which told the story of who I was and why I started the account. And I've never received so much engagement on an image as that image. Now, I've received loads of likes before, but I'm talking about comments. And I replied to every single one. And there were over 250 comments that I received. And yeah, I went through and I replied to all of them. And it was incredible. And I couldn't believe that it had taken me so long to realize the importance of not only showing up on Instagram, but also telling the story, telling my story, my origin story essentially, and bringing personality into my captions. It was amazing, and it just goes to show that you want to be sharing more of yourself and more of your story and bringing that connection through your captions, because honestly, that is what is going to really build those connections with your community. And honestly, so many people came out of the woodwork that day on that post and commented and said that they'd been liking my content for years, but they'd never commented before. And that they said in so many comments, it's so nice to learn more about you. It's so nice to see you. It's so nice to hear about your story. So yeah, it goes to show the importance of caption writing. So now, without further ado, let's jump into the tips. So tip number 1 is to make that first line scroll stoppable. Ask a question, make a bold or controversial statement, share a confession, talk directly to your target audience. Consider the first line of your caption like the subject line of an email. It has to be really, really compelling. Just like emails, think of the sea of emails you get. What are the kinds of subject lines that get you to actually open that email? The same goes for your Instagram caption. It has to be so scroll stoppable and so engaging and so compelling that your target audience wants to hit stop and read more. Because for the vast majority of people, they're just going to keep scrolling through the content on their feed, and it won't be until they see a really engaging first line, the hook that draws them in, that they're going to click read more. So make sure that you don't keep all of the juicy information to the body of the caption. You want to really pull out the teaser, the hook, the really strong opening line right at the beginning, right as the first thing that they see. Don't leave it buried at the bottom, because the vast majority of people won't get there. The second tip to creating captions that sell and that are really, really engaging is to tell a story. Now, if your caption is a personal story, a personal anecdote, perhaps about a challenge that you've overcome as a business owner, then telling that story should be fairly straightforward. But if you're sharing tips or advice or some kind of informative piece of content within your caption, then think about how you can frame that within a story. So for example, if I was going to share 5 tips to grow organically on Instagram, then I might frame that within the story of how I grew my first Instagram account, The Doors of London. So always think about how you can frame it in a story so that it makes the caption more engaging. Tip number 3 is to include a call to action. Always, 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 always include a call to action in your captions. It doesn't matter if it's just asking people to leave a comment, if it's getting them to send you a DM, if it's encouraging them to check out your Instagram story, or if it's telling them that you've got a new blog post that they can find the link to in your bio. Always give your audience an action to take, because it is going to get them into the habit of engaging with you. And it might feel weird at first to get people to do this, but honestly, the more you do it, the more people will actually respond to your calls to action. But if you're never putting them out there, then don't wonder why you're never getting engagement. You've got to get people in the habit of doing that for them to engage back with you. And if you're wondering why engagement is so important, then check out the video above my head now, where I am talking all about the Instagram algorithm and why relationships and engagement are so important to getting your content seen and ranked by the algorithm. Tip number 4 is to make sure that every caption has a purpose. You don't ever want to start writing a caption without knowing what the purpose of it is. Is it going to educate? Is it going to inspire? Is it going to motivate? Is it going to connect? Always, always know what the purpose of your caption is before you start writing it. Because not only does that translate through the caption and actually gets to your target audience so they know why they're reading the caption and they can respond in a certain way, but it also gives you structure to know what to write, so you're not staring at a blank caption box or a blank piece of paper wondering what the hell you're going to say and why you're even going to say it. Tip number 5 is to speak in your brand voice. Now, you know your brand voice, whether it's simple and straightforward or lighthearted and full of emojis. But if you find yourself getting stuck in a kind of robotic voice, or you're feeling a bit stuck with how to speak and sounding like you, then just imagine that you're having the conversation you're having in your caption with your friend in a cafe. Think about how you would literally say the words out loud and then try to translate that into your caption. Because by hearing your voice as you would speak to your friend in a cafe, it's really going to help you connect better with your target audience. So always go back to the conversational way that you would speak with a friend in a cafe, and then put your brand voice spin on it if it's slightly different to that informal tone that you'd have with your friends. Tip number 6 is to include some emojis. Now, I wouldn't recommend you stuff your captions full of emojis, because sometimes that can be a little bit overkill on the emoji front. However, emojis are a really great way of adding context and adding meaning when sometimes words just won't do, and emojis really take it to that next level and help you connect with your audience in a deeper, more meaningful way. So don't be afraid to sprinkle some through your caption, not only to, as I say, add context, but sometimes they're a really great way of helping to break up a lot of copy in one caption. Tip number 7 is to include your hashtags in a separate comment underneath your caption, not within your caption. Now, sometimes a caption calls for a few hashtags to be used within the caption itself. However, definitely don't use the space you have for your caption to just stuff it full of hashtags, because it just looks messy and you don't have to do that, and you're not going to get penalized either way. But just from a purely kind of user experience perspective, definitely include your hashtags. And I always recommend using up to 30. You have the opportunity to, so why not? Use that and paste them in a comment below your caption rather than stuffing them into the caption itself. Tip number 8 is to write your captions in advance. Just like in the video that I'm linking to above my head, where I talk about planning your content in advance and why it's so important to do so, The same goes for your captions. I talk about captions in that video, but it is really important that you are planning your captions ahead of time as you're planning your content and your imagery ahead of time. Why? Because it's really hard to actually have a holistic view of your strategy and to know what's working and what's not, and to know whether you are including all the things that you want to be including in your strategy, like whether you are hitting all of the content pillars that you should be in your captions, whether you are doing a good balance of talking about your offer, balancing that with talking about your story, balancing that with talking about advice and education and informative, valuable content, then it's going to help your audience. It's difficult to know whether you're doing that properly if you are writing captions as you go along on a day-by-day basis. So definitely sit down. As you plan all your other content in advance, sit down and write your captions in advance. That will give you a really great bird's eye view of your content, and it will make you a better Instagrammer. It will make you more strategic so you know what's working and what isn't. And it will also mean that you factor in all the tips that we've talked about in this video every time you come to write a caption, because you're doing it in one go with one burst of focused energy and attention, and you can make them the best they can possibly be. That's how I write all my Instagram captions. It's how I used to write all the captions for the big brands that I used to work on. So definitely write your captions in advance and batch them so that you can get through them all in one go and make sure that you are making them as good as they can possibly be. And a little bonus tip here for you, because I love giving you bonus tips in these videos. If you're wondering about the length of your Instagram caption and what is best practice for how long a caption should be, I would say don't get too hung up on the length, but generally speaking, you're going to get more value into a slightly longer caption, certainly more than a caption that is 1 or 2 sentences long. And I would try to avoid keeping them really short where possible, just because you can't really say very much in a 1 or 2 sentence caption. And so if more of your captions are that short than the longer captions, then you're probably not telling a story or thinking about the purpose or giving as much value to your audience as you could be. So try to make them slightly longer in length. Sometimes a caption doesn't call for a long length, and that's fine. But generally speaking, just focus on how you can best serve your audience, best tell that story, making them purposeful and including a call to action. And when you factor in those things, the length that you arrive to will be the right length. That is all for today's video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit the subscribe button and the bell button so that you're notified every single Friday when a brand new video goes live. If you have any more thoughts about captions, any more questions, or your own view on your caption writing, drop them down in the comment section below and let's chat. If you want to get your hands on any more free resources, then there's a bunch of links in the description box below, including a link to my free 4-day email challenge, as well as a whole load of other videos related to this one, and also a link to my application form. Should you decide that you want to work one-on-one with me on your strategy, I would love to talk to you once you filled out that form. That's all for this week, guys. I will see you next week for a brand new Instagram marketing video. Bye.